Very pleased to have you here today to hear about Oregon's Road Usage Charge Program. It's a new program created by the Oregon State Legislature to improve road funding for the state of Oregon. It began long ago when the Oregon Legislature decided in 2001 that we needed an alternative to the fuel tax for funding the road system. They anticipated ahead of time, which is good, that the fuel tax was going to drop off in revenues because we're going to have more fuel efficient vehicles on the road, and they proved to be accurate. That's what's happening in the state of Oregon now and across the United States. So they created the Road User Fee Task Force back in 2001 to develop policies that would then show up in pilot programs of the Oregon Department of Transportation. And the first pilot program was accomplished in 2006 and 2007. It involved pilot mileage reporting and payment at the fuel pump. But it was pretty heavy on capital cost and had a GPS device in every vehicle, and the public reacted negatively to that. So we kind of stopped and did a rethink on the program and came up with the second one, which was launched in 2012 and 2013, to have mileage reported wirelessly from machine to machine and not require a GPS option, and also have private sector account management rather than having the government do all the collections. This second attempt proved very fruitful, and we ended up with Senate Bill 810 passing the Oregon State Legislature in 2013 that created the first operational road usage charge program in the United States. The charge is 1.5 cents per mile for light vehicles, and it began on July 1, 2015 for 5,000 volunteers. Later on, when this program is proved useful, it'll be a tool for the legislature to add additional vehicles and perhaps make it a mandatory program. But is this program called Origo, branded Origo, a government-operated, single technology, closed system that will be expensive to operate and extremely difficult to change? No. Oregon is establishing an open market billing platform for road use charging. And the organizing characteristics for this program are as follows. Design the program with an open architecture. What that means is Oregon won't get stuck with one vendor for eternity. We'll have an open market where firms can come in and perform the services or leave at their will. Motorists will have choices as to how they interact with the system. They won't have to be required to have a government-selected box. That will come from the marketplace because it's technology agnostic. The government simply doesn't choose the technology, the marketplace does, and the volunteers have a choice. They will have access to private sector account management so that there can be options and differences between how accounts are collected. The system will be interoperable, scalable, and geographically unlimited. So it's not limited to just Oregon. We can do it on a local basis, multi-state basis, or on a national basis. And the system is policy neutral. We can have a road usage charge, or it can even go on and become something more grander and more complex. So let's talk about how the transactions occur. An account manager is selected by the volunteer, and then they have a mileage reporting device in their car that the payer's device transmits the miles driven to the account manager, and also fuel consumption to the account manager, who then takes that information and submits a billing to the payer and a credit for fuel tax already paid. The payer then pays that to the account manager, and it goes into the state treasury. Going a little deeper into account management, there's two types of account managers. There's a DOT account management that is kind of a boring system, okay? There's also the commercial account managers where business entities are trying to create a business around it. The DOT account management, they must accept every volunteer, okay? There's no point of rejection. They must report all miles driven. So there's no location element involved, because the government does not want to have access to coordinates. No value-added services will occur on the DOT account management system, so nothing interesting except for just paying the mileage charge. And the government cannot sell or dispose of the mileage data to anyone else. They have to keep it themselves and not give it away. On the commercial side, it's wholly different, though. The commercial entities are in competition with each other. They build business around it. They can recruit and choose volunteers. They can use all mileage reporting technologies that meet standards. So they can offer a GPS option to the volunteers. They can have value-added services. So more interesting things that will attract volunteers because they're creating a business around it. And with the express approval of the payers, they can sell the mileage data. So the volunteer experience is as such. Entry. The first thing that happens is you select a provider. And we have a website at ODOT where they can go sign up and select a provider. There's 3 of them right now, Azuga and ODOT and the Verizon Telematics. Verizon Telematics and Azuga are in the commercial account management. So you can go on that website and actually select going back and forth and see which one of the providers is your preference. And actually, you all can do it. You can do it and sign up or not. You can, or non-Oregonians can go on this and on this website called myorigo.org and try to sign up, but they won't be selected because they don't have an Oregon vehicle identification number. But you can do everything else. You can check the whole thing out. The second step, once you've selected a provider, you should go to their website. There's a link to do that, and you simply sign up providing information like your name, your address, your vehicle identification number, your license plate number, how you're going to pay. Once you've done that, you're entered the system. I did it at 6:15 a.m. in the morning on the day of the launch, and before I had coffee, and it was no problem. Then, about a week, you install the mileage reporting device that comes in the mail. It takes very little time, about a minute. You locate the port, plug it in. There's no screws, there's no screwdriver. You just plug it in, it lights up, and you're good to go. And then you simply drive. Then at various points, you'll get a bill in the mail to pay, or one of the account managers, Azuga, has a prepay wallet. So you can pay ahead of time, and they hit the wallet, so you don't have to worry. You can fill it up whenever you want to and not get a bill in the mail or by email. So the method of payment varies by account manager, and it's your selection, your choice. So how will an open market affect road usage charge operations? One, it minimizes the government footprint. Most of the activity is done by account managers that are commercial outside the government. Now, ODOT does have people managing the account managers to make sure they follow the rules, but there's a fewer number of those folks, so it does minimize government footprint to have commercial account managers in the market. Competition improves efficiency of operations. If the account managers are working for profit, and they are, they'll want to reduce the cost of operating the system. So efficiency is actually improved by a commercial account manager market. Competition fosters evolution of technologies because they want to have the best way to report miles, the least costly and the most effective, and the least intrusive. So there'll be competition there. And value-added services reduce the administration costs of the system because you can now have bundled billings that now reduce the cost of collection because you're collecting multiple things. That's what the advantage of the commercial market is. And finally, the payers themselves control system management or system engagement according to individual preferences. They can make the system simple and easy for themselves by their preferences. Okay, let's talk about some of the major issues for implementation of a per mile charge in the United States. I'm not going to hit all of them, but these are the biggies. Privacy. Everybody's worried about mileage reporting and privacy. In Oregon, our deployed solution was actually developed by the state legislature. They put in statute how privacy was going to be protected. And they did so several ways. The first way was to provide choices for reporting method and technology. You find the provider you're comfortable with, you choose the method of reporting that's comfortable for you. There's no mandate for GPS. Nobody has to have a GPS box. So if you're worried about that, you don't have to have it. There's an option for private sector account management. Some people prefer the government, other people prefer the private sector. It's not for the government to decide which one. Let the payer decide who they want to use. And then if it's private sector, which private sector company they want to use. And there's a very strong protection in statute for protection of personally identifiable information. The data involved is only accessible to specified entities in the law. No one else can have it. And the motorist controls data sharing, as I mentioned earlier. It can't be shared outside of that group, or they're in violation of the law and will be penalized. Most importantly, data destruction must occur within 30 days after the mileage data is necessary to be used for payment and compliance. But then it has to be destroyed, and this was something very important to the American Civil Liberties Union in the United States. And ODOT was able to negotiate that provision with the American Civil Liberties Union, who said that the privacy protection provisions of the law in the state of Oregon met their standards. The second big issue is the cost of administration of the system. With 5,000 volunteers, the cost is going to be high because it's a small group, and you still have to build the system and operate it at a certain level, no matter how big it is. But the percentage of that cost goes down as the size grows. So as we go into tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of motorists, the cost of administration will go down. Finally, equity. There's been objections for various reasons to the program from individual perspectives. And the two probably the most common are rural drivers. They drive a lot more, they say, and they do, but of course it depends on where in rural Oregon or America they do drive. I grew up on the coast. We didn't drive that much compared to urban drivers in Portland. But out in eastern Oregon, they do drive a lot of distances there, a lot of trips. But it's interesting, they pay the fuel tax now. So if the fuel tax is being substituted by a mileage charge, what is the difference? You see, we don't really know until the legislature adopts policy in that respect. So this is really a premature objection. The other thing is, our research shows that rural drivers tend to drive about the same amount as urban drivers on public roads. It's just that rural drivers drive more off public roads, on private roads or the like. And so if we're charging for public road driving, it might be pretty much the same as for urban driving. There might not be an unfairness issue. This is an issue that takes a little more time to work through, and the legislature will do that. What we know is rural drivers just don't want to feel like they're being cheated and treated differently. And if they're treated fairly, I think that this objection will go away. The other main objection is fuel-efficient vehicles. Some people that drive highly fuel-efficient vehicles believe they shouldn't pay for the road system. This is not really something that the Oregon legislature had a lot of sensitivity to, because everybody should have a fair share of the costs of paying for the road system. And a lot of fuel-efficient vehicles, especially those that are hybrid or electric, pay very, very little fuel tax for the road system. So a per mile charge would actually get them in and pay a minimum amount for the road system. Some people have complained that this would disincentivize people from buying and operating high mileage vehicles. But they're already avoiding the cost of fuel. So it's not a complete disincentive. It's a relatively minor one. And in fact, the per mile charge would not be a large burden. The average motorist in the state of Oregon, if they drive 12,000 miles a year, pays about $180 a year. This is not a big number. A lot of people don't even understand that. So if they understood that it was $180, probably this objection would start to go away too. So what is next for road usage charging in Oregon? Actually, we're entering the final stage. The final stage is to determine which vehicles are in the system for a mandatory program, when they're in the system, what is the transition, and finally what the rate structure is. That is something that has not been decided, and it's something for the Oregon legislature to decide once ODOT has proven that our current program for 5,000 volunteers works well and is a tool that the Oregon legislature can use. Thank you.